Now joining us is the former college coach, and that's Rick Neuheisel. Coach, Zach and Mike here, WHIP. How are you?
Oh, you bet. I'm thrilled. This is always fun to be a part of the America's game here, Army versus Navy. It's going to be a thrill.
What does this game mean to you?
Well, obviously, from a historical standpoint, you go back and remember all the Heisman Trophy winners, Mr. Inside, Mr. Outside, Roger Staubach, just some fantastic heroes from yesteryear. And then today, obviously, Navy has taken this thing bull by the horns, if you will, and been dominating it. But I think everybody in the country is kind of eager to see Army rise up and steal a game here before too much longer goes by. And I know that Jeff Monken's got his eyes on that prize as we speak.
Covering just Temple football here in Philadelphia, we get to see Navy a lot. We saw them last year, and they ran all over the Temple defense. But Temple defensive player Tyler Medikevich is getting a lot of national awards. Got the Nagurski Award earlier this week and then won the Bednarik Award last night. And Tyler didn't have many people recruiting him. I'm sure you've been in that situation as a coach.
A walk-on myself. Yep. I know all too well.
So how does that set a fire under your belly when someone says, hey, we're not going to give you a scholarship?
You always have something to prove. You in each little rung on the ladder of trying to earn your chance to play is what we call a small victory, to get your own number. When you get there as a walk-on, you get somebody else's number. You're 24, but you're 24X, which means someone else is wearing 24. When I went to UCLA, Freeman McNeil wore 24. We didn't get confused a lot, but the bottom line is, and then when all of a sudden I got my own number, that was a big deal. I remember calling my mom and dad. When I got my own locker, I had to share a locker when I was first. That was a big deal. You get your chance to get into a scrimmage and hit a couple of passes. That's a big deal. And then all of a sudden, one fifth string, fourth string, third string, second string. For Tyler Medikevich, he's had 100 tackles in every one of his years. He lit the flame pretty quickly. I was more of a 5-year process. I finally got to be the starter in my 5th year at UCLA, and it turned out to be a great year. We ended up going to a Rose Bowl and had a great experience. But the bottom line is, kids who come in with little appreciate it so much more.
How rewarding is it to see that from a coaching perspective?
Oh, one of the great things I ever got to do as a head coach is give a walk-on a scholarship. I always made it a big deal, too. I'd have a team meeting, say, guys, we got something, call his name, you're on scholarship, and the place would go crazy. They would be thrilled for him because they know better than anybody how much he earned it.
We're talking to Sirius XM College Sports Nation host and former UCLA quarterback, and staying on the topic of this Temple theme, Matt Rule has turned this program around really fast. His first year goes 2-10, 6-6. Now he's 10-3, going to his first bowl game as head coach. Is there a little bit of worry that maybe with this big senior class, once they graduate, that the team will go back down to 500?
Well, there's always a concern. It's an every-year deal. And I would say that Matt Rule, and he would be quick to respond to you, that Al Golden actually had a huge hand in turning the fortunes of Temple around. I got to coach against Temple in a bowl game, the Eagle Bank Bowl back at Washington, D.C. In 2009, and I sat across from Al. I think Matt was on the staff at the time.
He was, yeah.
And we marveled at what had happened for Temple in terms of, this was a team that was banished. You hear of the European soccer leagues with relegation. Temple was relegated. They got kicked out of the league and sent into the wilderness and had to earn their way all the way back. So what's happened here with the leadership of guys like Al Golden and Matt Rule is really, really sensational story. And it's one that I think a lot of people around the country in the athletic director roles need to take a look at as to what's possible if you'll support a program. And I know as Matt was being courted by some of these other programs around the country, one of the things that his athletic director promised was the movement to do some things facility-wise so that a guy like Will Fuller, who grew up probably a stone's throw from campus, doesn't have to choose Notre Dame. He may have anyway because it's a great university and great program, storied history. But he would have had a great option to stay right there with all the bells and whistles that can come along with success, and certainly that program deserves it.
And you've had a lot of monumental moments in your football career, not just playing, but
Thank you for sharing.
but as well as coaching. But then as well, from a personal standpoint, how was it watching your son beat Texas in that moment? Just walk me through that.
The thrill of thrills. Yeah, and I think every parent out there can certainly understand. It doesn't matter if it's a piano recital, Little League. When your kid's on stage, there is nothing like it. You live and die with them. And I was working in San Francisco at the time for the Pac-12 network, and our job's to cover all the Pac-12 games. And all of a sudden, Jerry went into the game. Brett Hundley got hurt, and Jerry goes in, and I go, guys, you're going to have to watch those others because I'm going to be right here. And I screamed at that game like I was in his ear, like he was listening to every word I said. And it was one of the great thrills of my life. My wife was at the game, so she was screaming on the phone, and it was nothing like it when your child has that kind of, and when you see that joy on their face, it becomes your joy. So very, very excited for that. I wish there were more of those moments for him because he worked so hard. But maybe, he's still got a year of eligibility. Maybe he'll have some down the road.
Rick Neuheisel joins us right now from Army-Navy Radio Row at the Convention Center. Getting back to Matt Rhule, I know you get to talk to him a bunch on your radio show. What impresses you the most about him?
He kind of is personification of Temple football. He's a blue-collar, hard-working guy, no nonsense. They got beat by South Florida this year, and they got beat badly. South Florida put over 300 yards of rushing on him, and I remember having him on the show after the game, and he said, "You know what? We got away from being tough. We got away from who we are. We didn't bring our lunch bucket to work." And I challenged the guys. I showed the film, and I made them all sit there and realize, is that who we are, or were we that team that beat Penn State with 10 sacks? Or are we that team that went to Cincinnati and handled business? And I knew as we got off the interview that they were going to be fine, that they had gone back to their roots, and he knew what their roots were. And that's why, while this was all going on being courted, I said, I hope the athletic director realizes that they have the heart and soul of Temple football right there, and that they'll make it attractive for him to stay because he certainly deserves to. And in my gut, wants to.
And like you were saying, he's been around here, so that's where you get that drive to stay here. And
this is home.
You got to coach against
him. He loves
him
Philly.
And Al in that Eagle Bank
Bowl. He loves
Bowl.
it. Yeah.
He does. What do you remember about that Eagle Bank Bowl?
I remember cold. UCLA, we didn't even have jackets. We're those beach guys. I remember half the field, our sideline was like an ice skating rink, so no one ran a play to our sideline. Every play went the other way because you put a foot in the ground, you were sliding. And I remember being down 20-10. We actually kicked a field goal at the end of the half to go down 20-10. And I went in the locker room, and everybody was excited to be in there. I said, now listen, we're going to go out there and play our best half of football. Unfortunately, we were able to. We won 29-20. But it was a really good team. I remember being in the pregame warm-up looking over there. That's not Temple. Temple's not supposed to look like that. They were a fantastic-looking team, and that's a credit to all the coaches involved. And that's why I think Al and Matt are certainly at the cornerstone of the resurgence of Temple football.
Temple fans are also a little bit happier now they get to go enjoy the warm on December 22nd instead of having to sit
As
in the
are
cold.
Matakevich and company. Yeah. They'll be excited. Although, what are you talking about? It's 60 degrees in Philly.
Right?
This
Global
is unbelievable.
Warming for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Real quickly before we let you run, as Rick Neuheisel joins us, let's get it from a national perspective with the college football playoff. How do you see this thing shaping out?
I think it's a great tournament right now. You've got two offensive teams, and as soon as I say that, Oklahoma defensive coordinators Brent Venables and Mike Stoops will say, "What are you talking about?" But these are two offenses that are prolific. They're 500 yards, churn it out almost every week. As a matter of fact, Clemson has done it for 10 straight weeks, or at least 9 straight weeks of over 500 yards a game. Last week, 600 in their championship game against North Carolina. Oklahoma's got Baker Mayfield, a guy by the name of Samaje Perine, who once Lincoln Riley realized he should hand it off to him more, they've been a juggernaut, gave Lincoln Riley the Frank Broyles Award as the outstanding assistant coach. I think that's going to be an offensive seesaw game. Who can get stops is going to be the key to that one. In Dallas, you've got a completely contrasting game. It's two defenses. Michigan State has played their best defense when they needed it most. That against Michigan, that against Ohio State, that against Iowa. None of those teams got 300 yards of total offense in that game. As a matter of fact, they held Ohio State. I know the weather was bad. They held them to 132 yards of offense. So if they can do that and stop Derrick Henry, who, by the way, gets the ball every down. This is a great tip for them. Derrick Henry had 90 carries. Nobody in the history of the SEC has ever had 90 carries in 2 ball games. And so if they can slow him down and put the ball in Jake Coker's hand and see if they can cause a couple turnovers, they'll be right in this game. Otherwise, Alabama with that defense, which is just swarming and beautiful to look at. I call it, instead of a front 7, a front 14, because there's so many of them. Alabama will be tough to handle.
Coach, great to see you. Thank you so
All right,
much.
my friends, enjoy your time.
Will do. There is Coach Rick Neuheisel joining us on set live from Radio Row between Army and Navy. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back right after these short messages.